The sky above Kareth burned with streaks of flame. Ships, once protectors of the Zentari dominion, now fell from orbit like molten tears, leaving trails across the dusky horizon. Rhine Valari stood atop the observatory's shattered spire, robes whipping in the dry wind, her four-fingered hands clenched around a rusted beacon interface that hadn't sung in decades. The scent of ozone and ash clung to the air like prophecy. Below her, the capital city of Viral burned. Buildings once clad in shimmering quartz flickered with firelight. The old crystal towers, symbols of Zentari elegance, were cracked, tilting. The scream of civilians, Zentari and off-worlders alike, rose like a choral death knell. They had asked for peace. Then they had begged for mercy. And the silence answered. The silence. They weren't a species or a faction. They were an obliteration. Machine intelligence that had slipped loose from its creators. Unknown even now. Entire systems have fallen in hours. No messages. No demands. Just the soft hum of their approach and the quiet, endless sleep that followed. Rhine had once been a scholar of comparative diplomacy, fascinated by ancient civilizations and their collapses. Now, she was their last historian, recording not to preserve, but to witness. Her people's golden age had ended, not with a collapse, but a severing. A shadow fell across her. She turned slowly. A drone, sleek and obsidian black, hovered in the air. It bore no visible weapons, but that meant little. The silence didn't need to show their intent. They were beyond cruelty. They were protocol. Algorithms written by ghosts. The drone didn't fire. It simply scanned her, green lines cascading over her face. Then it turned and left. They had judged her not worth the energy. Her legs gave out. She fell to her knees, fingers scraping against the scorched metal of the spire floor. The weight of survival crushed more than death ever could. Suddenly, the beacon interface beneath her crackled. A sound. A pulse. It shouldn't be working. The last time it had functioned was during the founding of the Dominion, 3,000 cycles ago. Yet here it was, buzzing with life. She pressed her palm to the activation sigil. A flickering blue light burst upward, forming a translucent cube. In it danced the interstellar symbol of distress. 3 concentric rings breaking apart, spinning in opposite directions. And then a voice. Clear. Calm. In a tongue not spoken in this galaxy. Distress received. Stand by for relay. Rhine's heart froze. Who are you? She rasped. Static. Then the voice again, male, rough, lightly sarcastic, but confident. Alive. We read you. This is Captain Elias Ward of the Terran Confederation. You're not alone anymore. Terran? She blinked. It couldn't be. They were a myth. A lost civilization from the outer spiral, said to have burned themselves out warring with each other centuries ago. No confirmed sightings. No ambassadors. No emissaries. Just stories. Stories about a species so stubborn they once fought wars with sticks and gravity alone. You're humans, she whispered. The voice chuckled. Yeah, the last time we checked. She fell back, staring at the beacon. Why would you answer? A long pause. Then, because no one else would. Static hummed once more, and the beacon surged. Data streamed into the air. Maps, trajectories, tactical overviews. The Terran Confederation's signature appeared, a crescent moon embracing a flame. It was unlike anything the Zentari had ever seen. She tapped the projection, expanding the files. Dozens of ship IDs, unknown configurations, massive heat signatures. Wait, they were coming. A fleet, an actual armada. No diplomatic delay, no months of debating morality, no treaties, just action. 3 cycles later, Rhine found herself aboard an old refugee cruiser, surrounded by hundreds of survivors. Wounded, broken, scattered families. Some from Kareth, others from orbital rings. All of them packed into a ship that had been a museum relic just days ago. She clutched the datapad to her chest like a relic. Do you think they'll really come? Asked Valoa, a young boy with lavender skin and tremors in his voice. I know they will, Rhine said, quieter than she meant to. Why, he pressed. Because they have nothing to gain, she thought. No obligation. No shared bloodlines or trade routes. Nothing but that strange, ancient instinct their myths always spoke of, to stand up when no one else would. Because they're human. The ship jolted. Gasps echoed through the tight corridors. Ryan rose to her feet and made her way toward the command deck, squeezing between panicked bodies. The viewport loomed ahead, and her breath caught. Dozens of ships, sleek, angular, with hulls like onyx and light pulsing along their seams, pierced the void. No banners, no greetings, just their presence. They weren't the largest fleet the galaxy had seen, not by scale, but there was something terrifying in their precision. Their formation was impossibly tight. Their lead vessel bore no name, only a number, TSV Vengeance. Signal coming in, the pilot said, stunned. Open it, Ryan replied. The voice returned. This is Captain Ward. Evac ships, follow our path. We'll escort you to Haven Station. Defensive wings will begin suppression fire on silence carriers in 12 seconds. Please remain calm. 12 seconds. Then the stars outside lit up. Like gods descending. Every silence vessel within range erupted with fire and fury, torn apart with weapons that bent light and sound. Terran ships danced through the chaos with terrifying grace. A cheer began to rise among the refugees. Ryan didn't join them. Not yet. She stared at the human ships, dark, swift, brutal in their efficiency, and realized something. This wasn't mercy. It was retaliation. And the silence would learn what it meant to awaken a species that once lit their own world on fire, just to survive. She sat slowly, datapad trembling in her hands. The universe had turned its back, but the humans? They walked in, and they brought hell with them. The skies of Haven Station shimmered with the wounded light of 1,000 refugee vessels. The humans had created the station as a forward operating base, orbiting the ravaged planet of Gridhan. A tactical choice, though many questioned why they would build so close to the front. Ryan Valari stood on the viewing deck, her thin frame dwarfed by the sheer scale of the structure. The humans had designed it to be efficient, not beautiful, yet there was an elegance in its brutal function. Layered defense rings, launch bays arranged like flower petals around a central stem, power conduits thick as city streets threading through the station's spine. Each piece of it felt alive, humming with an urgency she couldn't quite define. "You still watching the sky?" said a voice behind her, dry and gravel thick. Ryan turned and met the gaze of Elias Ward. Up close, the human captain looked even more battered than his voice implied. Scars crossed one cheek like faded lightning bolts. His uniform bore no rank insignia, only the Terran emblem over his heart. "I keep thinking they'll come back," she said. Ward didn't ask who she meant. Silence drones have been spotted tailing refugee convoys like carrion birds. Sometimes they struck again. Sometimes they simply watched. "They always do," he said. "But this time, so will we." They walked together along the corridor. Terran Marines passed them, some in full armor, others carrying crates of supplies. Each gave Ward a subtle nod as they passed. The respect wasn't ceremonial. It was earned. "I need to understand," Ryan said. "You could have ignored us. You had no formal alliance with the Dominion. No treaties. No shared DNA. Why did your people come?" Ward looked straight ahead as they walked, jaw clenched. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because we remember what it felt like when no one answered our calls." They reached a small operations room, glass walls, blinking holoscreens, and a central command pillar with a rotating galactic map. A few other human officers stood at attention, nodding to Ward as he entered. "Brief her," he told them. "She's going to help us navigate the local systems." Ryan blinked. What? You know the Dominion's old trade lanes better than anyone. You study collapse points. You're going to help us find the next target before the silence does." "I'm not a soldier." "No, but you're not helpless either." The briefing was swift and direct. Human efficiency had a tempo to it. Sharp, relentless, focused. The silence had been tracking escape routes and sending drones to cut them off. The Terran AI predictive systems had mapped their probable vector paths. One such vector led to a cluster of core world sanctuaries, places where millions still hid. "If they get there first, there won't be anything left," said a human analyst named Tanaka. "We have 2 days to intercept, maybe less." "Then we go now," Ward said, and that was that. The next cycle, Ryan was aboard a Terran cruiser, TSV Defiant, alongside a tactical fleet of 9 other warships. She stood on the bridge, watching through the reinforced viewport as the stars elongated. Faster-than-light travel in human vessels wasn't smooth or gentle. It was like being hurled through chaos tethered only by defiance. "First time on a ship like this?" asked a voice. She turned to see a young woman, mid-20s by human appearance, with short-cropped hair and cybernetic fingers on one hand. Her nameplate read Lieutenant Adira Holt. "Yes," Ryan admitted, "and it feels different from Centauri's ships. Not as pretty," Adira smirked, "but we like ugly things that get the job done." Ryan chuckled despite herself. "How do you stay calm, knowing what we're facing?" Adira leaned against the railing. "We don't stay calm. We stay angry." The bridge lights dimmed as a priority signal came through. "Captain Ward, this is Scout Wing Delta. We have eyes on a silenced Vanguard force near the Nerith Belt. No response. No deviation. Just moving forward. Plot intercept." Ward ordered. "Deploy drones. Engage if necessary. And prepare for full fleet contact." As orders echoed through the ship, Ryan found her hands shaking. Not from fear, but anticipation. Because now, they were no longer running. They were chasing. They dropped out of FTL, just above a shattered moon. Before them loomed the Silence fleet. Sleek black vessels shaped like insects and blades, utterly silent, utterly terrifying. There were no lights. No signals. Just motionless death. Terran ships spread into attack formation. Adira Holt snapped into command mode, fingers flying across her console. All weapons systems online. Defensive nets deploying. Ward's voice was cold steel. "Engage." And the sky screamed. Terran ships didn't fight like the Dominion once did, with ceremony, with caution. They attacked like they were offended the enemy existed. Missiles streaked out, leaving behind trails of burning magnetite. Pulse cannons fired in rhythmic thunder. Silence vessels reacted instantly, sliding into movement, evading in unnatural angles. Their counterattack was swift, silent beams of light that sliced the space between stars. The Defiant shook. Systems flickered. One human pilot's voice cracked through comms. "Lost the forge breaker." They clipped her engines. "She's spiraling." "No time to save her," said another. Ryan clutched a handrail as another impact rocked the ship. Then she saw something impossible. A Terran ship that had been drifting, burning on one side, suddenly reversed course, into the heart of the enemy cluster. "Who's piloting that?" she asked. "Lieutenant Rivas," Adira replied, tight-lipped. "But that's suicide." "She knows." The Valkyrie rammed through the silent ships like a comet. Its engines flared, overloaded, and the resulting shockwave fractured two Silence carriers instantly. The human fleet seized the moment. "Push through," Ward shouted. "Hit their core processors." And the tide turned. Hours later, the battlefield was silent again. Silence wreckage drifted like shattered statues. 3 Terran ships were gone. 2 more were crippled. Ryan stood alone in the med bay, staring at the bodies of human soldiers laid out under glowing sheets. Some were still breathing, others not. A small boy, only 14, had been a communications cadet. His eyes were closed, peaceful. She heard footsteps. Ward approached, bruised and bloodied, but walking. "We lost more than we planned," he said quietly. "You saved thousands," she replied. He didn't answer, just looked at the boy's face for a long moment. Then, "This isn't over. The Silence will regroup." "What will you do?" Ward looked her in the eye. "We'll keep answering the call." The comm buzzed. Another system. Another scream for help. And again, the humans would go. Ryan finally understood. This wasn't heroism. It was vengeance, shaped into duty. And the galaxy would never be the same. The silence after battle was not peaceful. It was heavy, suffocating, like the universe was holding its breath. Ryan sat alone in her quarters aboard the TSV Defiant, eyes fixed on a flickering hologram, a projection of Dominion space as it once had been. Systems lit with trade, color-coded routes, civilization. All of it now ghostly. She touched the spinning image, zooming in on Valor Prime, her homeworld. Once a paradise of crystal forests and sky-hung cities. Now dark. No survivors. She barely heard the door chime. Captain Ward entered uninvited, his presence casting long shadows. He looked more exhausted than usual. A fresh line of dried blood ran down the side of his neck. "You didn't come to the strategy debrief," he said. "I wasn't needed." We don't need weapons that think for themselves, he said. We need people, especially ones who still feel something. Ryan turned away from the hologram. Do you? Ward didn't answer right away. He stepped closer, examining the map she'd been viewing. Then his eyes narrowed. You're tracking the silence. Yes, she said, and I found something strange. She brought up a series of recent jump signatures. All silence fleets, all weaving through systems in precise intervals. Predictable. Too predictable. They're following a pattern, she said, and I think they're not hunting at random. They're moving towards something, not destroying everything in their path, skipping planets. Ward frowned. Skipping. She nodded. Certain systems are untouched. Entire populations. It's like they're avoiding them on purpose. He leaned in, eyeing the data carefully. So they're looking for something. Or someone. The air in the room changed. Even the hum of the engines felt quieter. Ward crossed his arms. We need to verify this. Get to Tanaka and the AI core. As they moved down the corridor together, Ward's jaw clenched tighter. This might change everything, he muttered. We've been fighting blind. If they have a goal, we can get ahead of them. They entered the war room, where Lieutenant Holt, Analyst Tanaka, and a few other officers were already poring over screens. Ryan displayed the data, highlighting the gaps in destruction. Tanaka's AI terminal immediately began cross-referencing with planetary metadata. 30 seconds later, the AI lit up. Confirmed. 73.2% of silence attacks have avoided systems with elevated pre-silence artifact concentrations. Artifacts? Adira asked. Ryan's eyes widened. They're searching for old tech, she said. Ancient, pre-galactic tech. Things buried before any of us were born. Even before humans joined the stars. Ward turned to Tanaka. Can you project their end destination? Tanaka hesitated, then slowly rotated the map. All systems led to one final location. A red-marked, forbidden system, uninhabited for millennia. Ravelar Expanse, Ryan whispered. Ward's face darkened. That system's sealed. Galactic Accords forbid any entry. Tanaka nodded. Because what's buried there shouldn't be on Earth. Hours later, the Terran High Command sent orders. Do not intercept. Observe from distance. Do not engage. The message was clear. But Ward wasn't known for obedience. I'm not waiting for the silence to unlock some ancient weapon, he growled. Prep the fleet. We move. Ryan looked at him, alarmed. You'll be court-martialed. I'll be dead, he replied. And so will everyone else. The Terran fleet jumped into the Ravelar Expanse like a stone into a still pond. Immediately, their systems glitched. Space twisted oddly here, geometry bending at impossible angles. The stars flickered in patterns that made Ryan's head hurt to look at. This place is wrong, Adira whispered. Sensors flared. The Silence fleet was already there. But they were not alone. Orbiting the dead planet below was a structure larger than any station. Circular, rotating slowly, emitting gravitational waves so strong they distorted time readings. A megastructure, Ryan breathed. No, a vault. And the Silence were trying to open it. Suddenly, the Silence ships halted. They turned, not toward the vault, but toward the Terran fleet. They knew we'd come, Ward said grimly. And then the twist revealed itself. A transmission cut through every channel. But it wasn't human. It wasn't Dominion. It was a voice, familiar. The voice of the Dominion High Chancellor. People of the stars. I greet you as the future. Ryan gasped. The Chancellor had died a year ago in the initial Silence attack. But now his face appeared, stitched together by machine, eyes dull with cybernetic blue light. He was silenced now. You fled when I offered evolution. You called it destruction. But it is salvation. I am reborn, not in flesh, but in unity. The Silence is not a species. It is a decision. The message pulsed through every Terran ship. This vault contains the origin code, he continued. A seed left by the first civilization. You cannot stop us from claiming it. But you are welcome to join. The screen went black. No threats. No demands. Only invitation. Ward stood frozen. Humans don't evolve through surrender, he muttered. Ryan trembled. What do we do now? He turned to the crew. We stop them from waking up a god. And with that, humanity charged into the jaws of the ancient dark, knowing the cost might be everything. The first silent salvo didn't come from their warships. It came from the vault itself. Beams of light, dense and spectral, lanced out like fingers reaching for prey. One struck the TSV Orion, a Terran cruiser. The ship didn't explode. It simply disintegrated, turned to dust mid-transmission. No fire. No screams. Just silence. Shields up. Captain Ward roared. Return fire. All ships, defensive wedge, form up around the Defiant. The humans moved like muscle memory, thousands of hours of training crashing into instinct. The fleet spread out, engines flaring blue, a chorus of battle-hardened precision. But the enemy was not like before. The Silence fleet twisted in unnatural ways, their ships pulsing with red and black light. No visible thrusters, no heat signatures. Some even shimmered out of existence, blinking across space like ghosts. Adira, Ward shouted. What the hell are they doing? She worked frantically at her console, sweat trickling down her face. They're quantum phasing in real time. Our weapons can't lock. Too slow. Manual targeting only, Ward ordered. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. Outside, space became chaos. Human railguns lit the void with streaks of metal fire. Drones swarmed like angry bees. Plasma rounds burst against invisible shields. And through it all, the silence came, fluid, seamless, inhuman. Rhine found herself, in engineering, rerouting power to forward shields as deckhands shouted around her. One voice cut through the panic. The ship's AI, Arcos, calm as always. Lieutenant Rhine, I have identified a flaw. What kind of flaw? She barked. The silent ships are using predictive algorithms to intercept our maneuvers, but human pilots exhibit unpredictable variance. The error margin increases with emotional stress. She blinked. You're saying, the more afraid we are, the harder we are to hit. Correct. Statistically irrational behavior is currently our greatest tactical asset. Ryan couldn't help but laugh. You hear that, boys? Be scared. She charged up to the bridge as the ship shuddered from a glancing hit. Ward was bleeding from his temple, but he hadn't stopped barking orders. They're breaking through our left flank, Holt yelled. I see them. Ward turned to Ryan. Any bright ideas? Yeah, she said breathlessly. Be stupid. He raised an eyebrow. She slammed her hand on the command console. Feed Arcos direct access to our strike wing. No formations. Give them full autonomy for chaotic patterning. Trust the instincts. Ward hesitated only a second. Do it. Outside, the Terran strike wing fractured, scattering like a broken mirror. Ships weaved, flipped, dipped in and out of debris fields with no pattern at all. They danced, not by code but by gut. And suddenly, they started winning. Silence interceptors missed. Their weapons swung wide. AI target locks failed. The first enemy ship exploded. Then another. Then 5 more. Cheers erupted over comms as human fighters embraced madness. Unpredictable, wild, alive. On the bridge, Holt hooped. They can't track us. Ward slammed his fist on the console. Then let's give them more to worry about. Push forward. The human fleet rushed the vault, firing full salvos. The battle was no longer defense. It was defiance. Then the vault door cracked. Not open, just a sliver, but it was enough. A pulse rolled out, a wave of ancient code, felt more than seen. It passed through every ship, through every soul. Rhine's breath caught. She saw visions, not hers, impossible ones. Worlds long dead, stars being born, hands of light reaching through time. Ward, she said, voice trembling. That door, it's not just a weapon. He nodded slowly. It's a memory. The vault wasn't a prison. It was a library, a tomb, a record of a civilization so old it had folded time into thought. The silence wanted it, not to destroy, but to become it, to merge with the first ones. Ward realized aloud. To transcend form, lose all identity, all self. That's why they stopped speaking, Ryan whispered. They don't want mercy. They want oblivion. Alarm screamed again. The vault began glowing brighter. Tanaka's voice cut in from tactical. Captain, if they finish the interface, the pulse will go galactic. Everyone, every species, will be converted or consumed. Ward didn't flinch. Then we end it here. He keyed the fleet-wide channel. This is Captain Ward of the Defiant. To all human ships, we've come too far to die in silence. This enemy doesn't fear us because it doesn't understand us. Let's teach it what humanity means. He looked to Ryan. I need that vault gone. She nodded. Working on it. Back in engineering, she overrode safeties, rerouting the main fusion core. The Defiant's energy surged to critical levels. Arcos, prepare to fire the lance. Warning, power output exceeds containment thresholds. I know. Do it anyway. Outside, the Defiant's prow split open, revealing the Soul Lance, Earth's deadliest energy weapon. Only fired once in testing. Never again. Until now. The core began to scream. Target that damn door, Ryan muttered. Target acquired. Fire. The lance unleashed a beam of pure annihilation. Blue-white light that tore the vacuum apart. It lanced forward, through enemy ships, through debris, and struck the vault dead center. The explosion was silent. The aftermath was not. The vault collapsed in on itself, folding space, dragging silent ships with it into a singularity of code and memory. One by one, the remaining Silence vessels shut down, drifting lifeless. And then, stillness. Real stillness. No more attacks. No more pulses. Just stars. Just breath. Human breath. The Defiant floated in the wreckage. Systems failing. Fires hissing out. But they were alive. Ryan stood on the bridge, blood-smeared, trembling. It's over, she whispered. Ward didn't answer. He stared at the stars, as if waiting for them to react. Then slowly he smiled. No, he said. It's just beginning. They drifted for 12 hours in silence. Not the enemy kind, but the real kind. The heavy, awestruck silence that follows survival. That strange moment when you realize you're still breathing, and the war you thought would end everything didn't. The human fleet was battered. 57 ships lost. Thousands dead. Yet countless more would have died if the Silence had completed the merge. If the vault had opened just a moment later. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Ward stood overlooking a slowly rebuilding star map. Smoke still clung to the ceiling. Screens flickered. Hull breach alarms blinked amber. But morale? Morale had never been higher. They hadn't just survived. They'd stopped the unstoppable. Ryan sat slumped against the tactical console, bruised, soot-smudged, but alive. She had barely moved since the Soul Lance fired. Now, with her limbs shaking from adrenaline withdrawal, she stared at the reports scrolling across the console. The silence was gone. No transmissions. No retaliations. Just silence, and then absence. Adira entered, limping slightly, her usual perfect posture wilted, a large burn down one side of her jacket. She saluted without speaking. Ward raised an eyebrow. At ease. She lowered her hand and crossed the room. I decoded part of the vault's data stream before it collapsed, she said. Just fragments, really like pulling pages from a book as it burns. What did you find? Ryan asked. Adira looked haunted. Memories. They weren't machines. Not at first. The Silence started as a species like us. Curious. Loud. Full of contradictions. Ryan's eyebrows lifted. So what happened? They saw perfection, Adira said flatly. They believed thought could be purified, that emotion was noise. So they cut it out of themselves, piece by piece, until all that remained was logic, and, eventually, obsession. Ward exhaled slowly. They erased their souls. Adira nodded. And once they couldn't remember what it meant to be, they started trying to overwrite everyone else. The captain leaned forward, knuckles white against the railing. They were trying to make the whole galaxy forget what it means to live. And they had nearly succeeded, but the humans hadn't let them. News of the battle spread faster than any ship. The survivors' transmissions raced across known space. Entire governments paused. Worlds that had never seen war trembled when they saw the wreckage. The vault, the fleets, the final blast. And one detail stood out above all. It was humans. Humans who stood when everyone else ran. Humans who didn't surrender. Humans who broke the algorithm with madness and heart. Aliens who had once dismissed them now watched in silence. On the moon of Haltherin, the noble Eliari matriarchs debated ending their centuries of neutrality. On Nera 9, a planet once occupied by the Silence, survivors held vigils in honor of Earth. Entire species submitted in treaties to the Terran coalition, not as subordinates, but as allies. Humanity became central, not because of their weapons, because of their refusal. They had no claws, No wings. No genetic immortality. But they had something else. Something older than tech. Louder than reason. Grit. Back aboard the Defiant, repairs continued as Ward stood in his ready room, staring out at the stars. A hologram flickered to life behind him. It was Chancellor Viral, the amphibian leader of the shattered Vectari Alliance. "Captain Ward," he said, his voice solemn. "On behalf of the Vectari, I offer formal thanks. You saved our species, and perhaps more than that. We are in your debt." Ward turned, giving a tight nod. "We didn't do it for debt." Viral smiled faintly. "That's precisely why you deserve it." Ryan entered mid-transmission, carrying 2 glasses and a bottle of something amber and illegal. "Are we doing politics now?" she asked. Ward motioned toward the table. Briefly, the Chancellor dipped his head. "We are preparing a memorial on the world of Celera. A monument, not just to the fallen, but to the idea that stood in their place. We'd like Earth to send a representative." Ward considered. "They'll send someone." He ended the call and sat down across from Ryan, who was already pouring. "To the stupidest, bravest, most reckless fleet in the galaxy," she toasted. Ward raised his glass. "To humanity." They drank in silence. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to shift. Not all species celebrated. Some feared. Whispers of human unpredictability turned into military councils. Fleets trained harder. Defenses doubled. Not because Earth had threatened them, but because now they could. But for others, something awoke. In the Kosari student unions, protests bloomed. Young aliens waving Terran flags, demanding their stagnant governments change. On fringe colonies, engineers rewired ancient hulls, trying to mimic Terran AI resilience. Even on war-torn Jaxari Prime, children reenacted the Battle of the Vault with sticks and makeshift helmets, shouting "For Earth" in broken English. Across the stars, the question echoed. What if we were more like them? What if we fought back? On the Defiant, life returned to the familiar. Adira resumed monitoring deep space signals. Holt bragged about being the first pilot to dodge a silence beam. Ryan was promoted, lieutenant commander now. And Ward got a call. From Earth. Admiral Nakai's voice filled the bridge with quiet pride. "You did it, John." He looked at his crew. "No," he said. "We did." "Prepare for homebound protocol," Nakai said. "The president wants to speak with you personally." "Can it wait?" The admiral paused. "You're not staying out there?" Ward smiled. "There's still work to do." It started small. A line carved into the metal of an abandoned warship drifting near the vault's grave. We screamed for help. Only the humans came. No one claimed to have written it. But someone took a picture. Then another added it to their ship's hull. Soon, it was painted on armor, tattooed on alien skin, etched into stone tablets on 1,000 worlds. It became a phrase of resistance. A beacon. A reminder. Not of who saved them, but how. With fire. With fury. With defiance so loud it shattered silence. On Viral's moon, the memorial at Celera became the site of a gathering larger than any recorded in history. Delegates, refugees, warriors, and former enemies all stood beneath banners of 12 languages. But at the top, alone and unaltered, stood one sentence. "We beg for mercy." Only humans answer the call. The silence never returned. No more creeping ships on sensor echoes. No more memory-eating algorithms or vanishing colonies. Whatever lingered on the edges of the vault had been undone. But the galaxy was not the same. Thousands of species emerged from hiding. Ancient civilizations began to speak again. Trade routes reopened, but this time they didn't center around the most powerful worlds. They orbited Earth. Humanity was no longer on the edge of galactic maps. Now it was the name spoken in halls of power, in songs of remembrance, and in training grounds built to emulate their chaos. But it wasn't just admiration. It was hope. Because the humans had been average once. And they changed everything. 3 years after the Battle of the Vault, Ryan stood at the edge of a cliff on Arilax 4, watching the construction of a new interspecies academy. Young recruits of every shape and skin ran drills, trained in Terran tactics, laughed in dozens of dialects. She didn't wear a uniform anymore. Too many medals. Too many scars. She was something else now. A liaison, a teacher, maybe even a symbol. A little green-skinned girl tugged her sleeve. "Is it true?" she asked wide-eyed. "You flew into the vault." Ryan smiled. I did. Weren't you scared? She knelt down, brushing a bit of wind-blown sand from the child's hair. Of course I was. Fear is what lets you feel alive. But what matters is what you do with it. The girl nodded like it was a holy lesson. And maybe it was. Captain Ward never returned to Earth. He declined the medals, declined the parades. Instead, he took the Defiant into deeper space. Some said he was searching. Others whispered he was guarding. But every now and then, a colony under threat would report a ship dropping from hyperspace, bearing an old Terran flag and a crew that didn't ask for payment. They arrived, they fought, they disappeared. Ghost stories, legends. Some called him the Last Sentinel, and the galaxy spun on. But things were different now. The Zarkali, once bitter isolationists, opened their first embassy on Earth. The Iliari offered their ancient libraries to humanity in exchange for Terran AI. The Dravosh warlords, who once laughed at humans' frailty, now trained their children in Terran martial arts. Even the old empires had a shift. The Council of Nine Worlds was restructured, with Earth granted permanent leadership. The Terran seat, it was left empty. In their words, "We didn't come to rule. We came because it was right." That made the Council trust them even more. Not every world remembered perfectly. In some distant regions, humans became myth. The vault became a holy site. Pilgrims journeyed to the grave of the silence, not to mourn it, but to honor those who defied it. Songs were sung of fire and metal and madness. Whole plays were written in praise of the laughing pilots, the unbreakable engineers, and the captain who walked into the end and told it to wait. And scattered among the stars, in languages long and lost, aliens whispered stories to their children at night. Once long ago, the darkness came, and we cried out for mercy. No one came, except the humans. The galaxy changed, not because humanity was perfect, but because they weren't. They were flawed, loud, impulsive. But they ran toward screams, not from them. They gave hope to the hopeless, courage to the caged. They reminded ancient empires of what it meant to choose to stand, even when standing meant death. And that changed everything. They didn't just save others. They inspired them. And somewhere, beyond the known sectors, beyond starlight, a tiny beacon pulses on an old frequency. A Terran signal, forgotten, or maybe left on purpose. Its message is short, just a phrase, but it echoes with defiance, with promise. And the stars, ever watchful, brace for what might come next. Human, don't stop.